Audience, welcome back to the next video where we are going to talk about the remaining decision biases. Okay, the decision and judgment biases. Okay, decision and judgment biases. Okay, so these are four different kind of biases which are very much similar to previous ones. If you have already watched this cognitive bias series, okay, so if you are following this particular playlist, then you know what I am talking about. Okay, so yeah, the suggestion here is watch this video in 1.5x speed, okay, or either 2x. Okay, watch this in this particular speed. And yeah, that's how we start this particular video. So let's go. Okay, so what is this particular decision biases? I want to give you one thing, that we don't make decisions like rational calculators, right? We prefer the familiar, fear uncertainty, and let emotions distort probability. Okay, so understanding the cognitive biases, exploring how biases shape our decisions. These are we are going to talk about the status quo bias, resistance to change, ambiguity aversion, fear of the unknown, probability neglect, emotion over reason, optimism bias, overestimating positive outcomes. We usually do these four biases often in our life. Okay, so it is something related to our life. So please focus, guys, focus. This is something very important. Okay, understand about the importance of these four biases. So let's start with the status quo bias. Understanding our resistance to change. Status quo bias reflect our innate tendency to prefer familiar circumstances, as change often feels risky and uncomfortable, leading us to resist better alternatives despite potential benefits. Okay, so like, the preference for the current state. Okay, preference for the current state, whatever going on in my life, we stick to that. Okay, we stick to that particular routine you have. Okay, particular routine you follow, particular habit you have, the 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 time you wake up, the time you sleep. Okay, these kind of things are already biased and already fixated in your mind. Okay, and you don't want to change that. That's the thing, status quo bias. Okay, like for example, users resist a new app layout. Users usually resist a new app layout. This is the before. Okay, this was the past layout. Okay, and now this is the new one. And people just have this tendency that they always resist a new app layout, even if it's faster, because they are used to the old navigation. They are always familiar with the old one, so they don't like the new one. Okay, they do not accept the new one even though it is far more better. Okay, similar to the employees frequently stick with outdated software due to habits. Okay, that's the thing. They use the same technology, or something which they always known for. Okay, the versions. So status quo bias analysis, loss aversion, we are going to talk about it more. People prefer avoiding losses rather than acquiring equivalent gains. In marketing, default plans in marketing leverage the status quo to retain customers. UX. Default settings in user experience heavily influence user choices. In life, individuals often stick to routines, resisting necessary changes. That's what the thing is. In marketing, customers stick with the default plan, right? The default plan. In UX, default setting, default settings always dominate the new ones for the previous, yeah, or already the users who are using that particular application. Okay, change feels like loss even when it's a gain. That's the thing. People stay in a job or routine long after they stop service them. Okay, that's the thing, guys. Now we are moving towards the ambiguity aversion, understanding our fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. Ambiguity aversion is the tendency to prefer familiar risks over uncertain outcomes. We fear the unknown more than the known this bad, influencing our decisions in various contexts. We fear the unknown more than the known bad. This is very great. Users choose credit cards over new digital wallets, even if wallets are safer. Okay, that's the example here. That's the example. They prefer the previous past, which is safe, which look like a safer option. They do not want to upgrade to something new. This is a kind of very much similar to the feeling of, nostalgic. Nostalgic. Okay, like like investors prefer a mediocre stock they know over a promising but unfamiliar startup. Okay, they are going to always follow invest in the old stocks which are performing just enough well. Okay, but they are not going to buy the stocks of the startups immediately until they are proven right. Okay, so that's the thing. So what is the analysis? Innovation. Ambiguity aversion significantly hinders innovation, adoption, and development. In marketing, familiar brands gain marketing advantages by leveraging this bias. Most of the old companies, okay, most of the old companies or old brands, if they, if they introduce something, if they introduce something as a new product or new service, people will highly likely to buy. Okay, because they are already connected to that particular brand. That's why they are going to buy that product or service. Okay, that's the thing, guys. They are not going to buy for a new brand new company just because it is something offering new. Okay, so that's the thing. UX, clear guidance in UX helps mitigate ambiguity aversion effectively. Clear guidance. In life, people often avoid new opportunities due to this bias. This is the bias actually which is hindering your growth. Okay, so next is probability. Probability neglect. Guys, when emotions override actual odds, okay, actual odds. When emotions override actual odds, we obsess over rare risks or rewards and ignore everyday probabilities. This is something very different. Okay, this is something very different than the previous one. Emotional responses overriding actual risks. This particular bias occurs when emotions overshadow real probabilities, leading individuals to make decisions based on fear rather than factual evidence. Emotion beats math in these scenarios. That's the thing. So based on our emotions, it's not just the fear. Okay, It's just not just the fear, but also the greed. Okay, also the greed, which always drive us to something, a particular decision which we make, and then we regret later. Okay, then we regret later. For example, the betting. This is how the betting apps work. This is how the whole betting scenario work. This is how casinos work. Okay, this is how casinos work. Okay. Oh, the spelling is mistake. Casino. Casino. Okay. So that's the thing, guys. They uses probability neglect, because we have these two things innate with us. Fear often drives to greed, and greed often go towards the fear. Okay, it is like a yin and yang. So that's the thing, guys. Let's go for the examples. People fear plane crashes despite lower risk. Plane crashes are very less, okay? In terms of probability, they are very less. But dying from car accident is always higher, okay? Always higher. But people don't know about it or don't even care about it. Users panic about rare data breaches but reuse weak passwords daily. Weak passwords. This is also coming under this particular bias. Okay. Many panic over data breaches, ignoring simple threats. So, probability neglect analysis, overreaction. Individuals often overreact to rare but dramatic risks. Marketing. Companies use fear based ads to drive consumer behavior. Okay, UX. Security warnings can overwhelm users and hinder usability. Life choices. People buy lotteries but ignore necessary health insurance. That's the thing, guys. That's the thing. Fear based ads exploit these biases. Security warnings overshadow usability, even if risk is tiny. We buy lottery tickets but skip health insurance. So, next is optimism bias, overestimating positives in decision making. This lead us to expect the best outcomes while underestimating potential risks and timelines, often resulting in planning error and unmet expectations. For example, teams promise a redesign in 2 weeks and it takes 2 months. Teams often underestimate deadlines and resources needed. That's a great example. We always often, you make this optimistic choice, okay? This optimistic choice of new year resolution, right? New year resolution that I am going to learn these skills. I am going to excel in this particular uh, kind of opportunity in my life, that maybe a business or an idea. But at the very starting point we are very optimistic about it, but we often forget life is real, okay? And it affect our choices, it affect our psyche, and it also create a certain kind of pressure, and very less people can handle that level of pressure. And that's why new year resolution always end within 5 days, 5 days to 2 weeks, okay? Most of the new year resolution end because of this bias, optimism bias. The health. Individuals frequently downplay personal health risks and issues. That's the thing. Individuals, mainly individuals. So, guys, like, people underestimate health risks. It won't happen to me. This is not going to happen to me. So they do not focus around the health aspect. So the analysis here is that missed deadlines. Underestimating timelines leads to frequent project delay and failures. Marketing unrealistic promises can result in customer disappointment and distrust. In UX, underestimated onboarding friction may cause user frustration and drop off. In life, overcommitment often stems for unrealistic expectations and time misjudgment. That's the thing. So, yeah, and this is how you practically practice this particular biases. For status quo, ask yourself, am I choosing this just because it's familiar? This question invites you to examine whether comfort is limiting your options and decisions. For ambiguity, reflect on, write it, always write this down, okay? Write this down. Am I rejecting this only because it's unknown? Certain service, certain product, okay? Just ask yourself, am I rejecting this only because it's unknown? This prompts a deeper look at how fear of uncertainty affects your choices and opportunities. Probability neglect. Consider, am I reacting to emotions or actual odds when it comes to that product, that decision? Okay, ask yourself, write it down. This encourages you to evaluate whether your emotional responses are influencing your judgment and about risk and likelihood. So these are the more practical way that you can put these things and written in written format, like how these things are acting in your real life. Set best options as default. best options Best options, which is current and future based. Okay, look for those best option in your life which can really grow yourself. Okay, provide clear onboarding and demos in your UX if you are a UX designer. Balance fear messaging with facts in your businesses. Use realistic timelines and buffers in your business. That's the thing, guys. So this is how we are ending this video. Okay, humans don't just fear loss, we fear change. Uncertainty and odds are don't we don't understand. We cling to the familiar, panic at rare risks, and assume the future will be brighter than it is. If you want to design products, lead teams, or make smarter choices, you must master these biases. So that's the thing for this video, guys. Next, we are going to talk very great and unique kind of biases. Okay, so be ready for the next video. Until then, keep it simple, build it bold. Bye bye.